I bet this is exactly the sort of Peugeot my friend imagined when he got his license about a month or so ago. Sadly, he had less than €1,000 and absolutely no common sense whatsoever. So instead of something even remotely respectable, he bought this. A Peugeot 106 1.1, essentially James May in car form, and as you might expect, he drives exactly like him too. What you're looking at here could very well be the worst used car purchase
in the world.
Or at the very least in Europe, because what he's ended up with isn't a car, it's a project, a first car / mechanical nightmare. But before I show you everything that's wrong with it, let's begin with the grand tour. Now, I'm not going to comment on the exterior of a small used city car because, well, it doesn't matter at all. What does matter though is its sheer unapologetic Frenchness. The door feels lighter than a croissant, and I suspect it costs even less to make. Then you get inside and immediately realize,
There we go.
It was never designed for someone like me. First of all, the seat is all the way back and I've still managed to hit myself 3 times just trying to get in. But what's even worse than that experience is the pedal position. I wear size 11 Parkside safety shoes, and in this thing I can press all 3 pedals at once with my ankle, without even trying. But credit where it's due, the interior is held up surprisingly well. Even if the previous owner nicked the radio, which somehow doesn't surprise me at all for a Peugeot owner. Still, the moment you start looking for basic controls, the madness begins. The window switches, for example, well, it took me 5 minutes to find them. 5. For something that should be a basic thing to find. But if you think that's bad, wait until you meet the bonnet release. You'd expect it to be somewhere sensible, on the left maybe, logical, but no. This is France, so instead, there's nothing there. Just a mysterious bit of plastic guaranteed to ruin your fingernails, and a boot release placed exactly where you would expect the steering column adjuster to be. It's as if the Peugeot designer responsible for the cabin layout was slightly drunk, and come to think of it, that may not be far from the truth actually. The previous owner of this car clearly liked to live dangerously, and that's probably why there's a sticker of a scorpion on the side. But there's something far more dangerous than that lurking down here. These are 13-inch wheels wrapped in winter tyres. Now that isn't that bad on the surface, except these particular tyres were made in 2007. Yes, these tyres are old enough to drink, vote, and probably even remember the financial crisis. The tread still looks fine, but touch them and they feel worse than Lego tyres. And they probably provide as much grip as a bar of soap in the shower. So basically, my friend paid €500 for a French car, and thanks to these tyres, a free round of Russian roulette. The car cost him €500, but he already had to spend more than that just on parts, and that's just to try and get it running. Not even talking about making it usable.
You're a blithering idiot, and your stupid car is ruining my day.
Anyway, he did at least manage to find another poor soul willing to help him with it. As for me, I'm only here for the content, but if you lot actually enjoy watching this mechanical tragedy unfold, I might just as well turn it into a full-blown project series. So, do the usual. Click like, leave a comment, and subscribe, well, because someone has to fund my therapy if I have to work on this thing, or God forbid, drive it. Right then, back to work. Fortunately, it's not rusty, which means when we put it on the stands, they didn't immediately punch straight through the sills. So then, first on the to-do list is to remove the steering rack, because, well, it has issues, and not small ones. For starters, it's leaking. Everywhere. And then there's the plate. However, I'm not sure if this is how it came from the factory, but I've never seen a steering rack so desperate to find out who exactly is behind the wheel. And just in case you want to know which tools we used in this video, I'll try to include links to them in this video's description. I think the car heard what I said about it, and it's now pulling its revenge. Quick public safety announcement. Just because your tyres have tread doesn't mean they'll actually grip the road. These are dangerous. This will soon need new brake pads and rotors too, so if any of you have a clue about these, feel free to leave a recommendation. We'll be waiting. And here's a recommendation from me. No, this isn't a paid ad or sponsored in any way. I just genuinely like these stands by Neo Tools. I've had them for years, and in all that time, not a single weird noise. Right then, with all my budget-friendly parkside work lights at the ready, it's time to start taking this thing apart, which is usually the easy part, but not on a 25-year-old car, and certainly not on this particular one. Let me remind you, all of this effort, all of this filming, editing, and elbow grease is going into a basic Peugeot 106 with a 1.1 monopoint injection engine and something like 60 horsepower. Had it been the rally version, I'd have loved it. I'd have been delighted. But no, he bought the worst car he could possibly find. In fact, if you've somehow managed to end up with an even worse car, please tell me all about your Renault in the comments below. And if you didn't believe me about the steering rack earlier, I hope this changes your mind. Honestly, it's like in that song, moving up and down, side to side. It moves in every direction and the one you actually want it to, so there is a positive in there somewhere. Unfortunately, the new steering rack he got doesn't seem to be much better. I asked him why he bought a used one, and he said because he's broke. Fair enough, I suppose, but it doesn't make this any less terrifying to drive. So, carefully removing bolts by hand seemed like a good idea at first. And it lasted all of 5 seconds before someone decided to grab an impact wrench and risk it. And honestly, that pretty much set the tone for the entire night.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
If you thought that was bad, wait until you hear about my bolt and bit finding expedition. I came across the oil filter, which was made in 2014. Now, I don't know how long an oil filter sits on the shelf for, but I highly doubt it sits there for around 10 years. Which means, in the absolute best case scenario, this car last had its oil change about 5 years ago. Yes, 5 years. And you thought your mechanic was lazy. And after that somewhat painful revelation, I moved on to removing a few more bolts to finally get the steering rack out. The one from the steering column came out easily enough. The battery had to go as well, not that it mattered since it's about as useful as a potato. And then the real problems began. Every other fastener on the car was apparently madly in love with the little Peugeot, and they had no intention of giving it up or letting it down, nor were they about to run around and desert it. The bolts weren't just stuck, they were committed, the kind of commitment you don't get in modern relationships. So we had to resort to some extremely elegant solutions. Thankfully, our so-called elegant solution actually worked. For now. Part of the steering rack could finally be removed, but not the entire thing, of course, because this is a 25-year-old Peugeot and every bolt on it is made from 110% pure rust. So, yet again, even more elegant solutions were required. Now, with most of the steering rack no longer fused to the car at a molecular level, you'd think the worst was over. However, you'd be completely wrong. The hydraulic lines refused to come off because they were completely seized. So there was only one way to remove them, and that was by gently breaking them off. In a very controlled manner, of course. And I think it was around that point that we all realized this was not going to be a one-night job as previously planned. We didn't have spare hydraulic lines, and at the other end, they were just as well to the hydraulic pump as everything else on this car. So we had to take that off too. Luckily, I have a custom 1/4-inch Parkside subcompact impact wrench, which by the way, you can make yourself if you watch my tutorial. Surprisingly, removing the pump was easier than expected because all the leaking hydraulic fluid had already dissolved the rust from the bolts. That's Peugeot thinking ahead for you. Pre-rust prevention by continuous controlled leakage. And with no new steering rack or hydraulic pump to replace the old ones, we did the only sensible thing. We pretended the problem didn't exist and move on to fitting a new radiator. The radiator job actually went well, surprisingly well. And don't worry, that pole underneath is just sweat from all the horsepower. It's harmless. Well, probably. With the old radiator, which somehow managed to leak from 3 different places, finally out, we decided to check out the thermostat. And honestly, we really wish we hadn't. Because now we know it needs a new thermostat as well. At that point, we did the sensible thing and ignored that problem entirely. So we tried to cheer ourselves up by unboxing the new radiator. There's nothing quite like opening a brand new car part ordered specifically for your car. That little glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, something will finally go right. We carefully line it up just to confirm that the radiator which we ordered using the exact chassis number would fit. A mere formality really. Except of course it didn't. It needed some modifications to fit the car it was supposedly made for. And that was the moment I decided I'd had enough. I had a warm bed waiting for me at home, so I left him to it.
And here we are. Home, sweet home. Oh, joy.
Well, I suppose this is the bit where I say like, comment, and subscribe. Go on then, what are you waiting for?